Though it is home to fewer than 1 million people, at over 8,000 square miles, Kern is the third largest county geographically in California. It sprawls across the southern end of the San Joaquin Valley and eastward into the heart of the Mojave Desert. Oil and agriculture form the basis of the economy here. Like the rest of the nation, Kern was hard hit economically by COVID-19 in 2020. Empty grocery shelves. People who never before experienced hunger waiting in line for food. Fear. COVID-19 introduced all of us to food insecurity, defined by the USDA as a state in which consistent access to adequate food is limited by a lack of money and other resources at times during the year.
We saw a huge spike in first-time visitors. We had new clients that had never had the need for food assistance, and all of a sudden they found themselves out of work, underemployed. Their hours may have been cut drastically, and whatever the reason is, in order to maintain their household, they had to find an alternative source for food.
Nothing like I've ever seen before. I had seen families that I specifically knew in this community that were both family members, both adults were working, and they both lost their jobs, or maybe one lost her job and the other one kept working with them, just not working the full-time hours, that they were coming in for a food box.
But hunger in Kern County predates COVID-19.
It's really difficult to wrap your head around food insecurity in a place that's so bountiful.
We're this huge agricultural area that feeds the masses, but we don't feed ourselves.
There is a common perception that people who need food assistance are homeless, suffering from mental illness, alcohol or drug dependent, or just plain lazy.
Everybody who's homeless is not lazy. You might see women who's out there with her children, or her children is placed in a place and she's on the street because she was with a man. He did everything, but she was a housewife. When he left with everything and she has nothing, so she ended up in this situation. And people drive by like she's a nobody.
Some people want to say, well, they just don't want to work. For the most part, that's not true. People would rather work, make their way, and be able to pay their way, so to speak.
When I was married through all my 20s. We were very successful. So we were making 6 figures a year for a really long time. So food was, not a problem. I went to the grocery store, I got what I wanted, When we split up, it was a very abusive relationship. So when we split up, I had nothing. I left with $12 in my pocket. I didn't have anything. I was able to scrape together enough to get an apartment, and then every month it was scraping it together enough to keep that apartment.
Certain groups are particularly vulnerable to food insecurity.
Kern County has plenty of food. We're one of the nation's largest farming areas, but we also have one of the largest hunger issues here too. So as far as it has to do with seniors, I think it has to do with them needing to spend money on other things, medication, PG&E, utilities, things like that.
Bob Millsop is a senior living in Ridgecrest who relies on food distributions to survive. His medications run $1,800 per month, and even with assistance, he can't afford food on his fixed income. Frankie is a graduate student at California State University, Bakersfield, where he works at the campus food pantry. Frankie, like other students, has often had to choose between food and the academic resources he is required to have to pass his classes.
I found myself food insecure. I think like in high school, my family hit a rough patch and my dad stopped working, and it was a really hard time for us. We went to the food banks all around Kern County.
40% of our campus community, faculty, staff, and students, were food insecure.
I think it plays a big role, especially depending on certain classes, because some classes require you to buy the book from the student store or buy like a $200, $300 access code to do your homework. And so a lot of times students are facing the situation where it's either do your homework and succeed in your classes or find something to eat.
Those in substance use recovery and those in transition from incarceration also face an uphill battle to survive as they work to turn their lives around. After 3 years of volunteering there, Jason was able to find employment at the Golden Empire Gleaners Food Distribution Center, where he served a portion of his parole.
And so he went from this guy who was teetering out homeless, in trouble with the law, and didn't know where his next meal was coming with. And now he's a homeowner, he's a full-time employee, and he's the most dedicated guy you would ever want to meet. And that just warms my heart every day.
Yes, it's hard to get work when you come out of prison because, a lot of people don't want to hire parolees. The stereotype, like everybody that comes out of prison is bad. It's not true. There's a lot of good people in prison that just made mistakes. And it's just something that society has built that wall against parolees, and I wish they would give everybody a chance, because look what happened to me. I was given a chance.
But the most vulnerable population of all are Kern's children. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2018, 29.5% of Kern County families with children under the age of 18 were living in poverty. For single females with children, that rate rose to 53.5%.
If it's a female-headed household, where it's just a single mom and kids, it doesn't matter how many kids there are, that there's a higher probability that that household will be poor, and there's a higher probability that household will be food insecure.
We were homeless, and I worked, but I couldn't, and then when I would get paid, I would get a room for us, I was a single mom, but yeah, you can be homeless and have a job.
How did we get here? Why are so many Kern families facing food hardship?
The need for service throughout Kern County is always in flux, depending on what the economy is doing, depending on what the pandemic is doing, depending on what the job market is doing, more or less people will need food.
According to Dr. Hegde, food security comes down to two major factors: affordability and accessibility. A look at average home prices compared to median household income in the United States between 1980 and 2019 offers perspective on the problem of food affordability. 40 years ago, median household income in the United States was about $17,700. By 2019, it had risen to nearly $69,000. By contrast, median home price in 1980 was about $64,600. By 2019, it was $321,500. Nationwide, income has simply not kept up with the cost of living.
So key contributors to high rates of food insecurity include wages that remain stagnant compared to rising inflation. So costs go up at the grocery store, your rent goes up, everything just costs a lot more, and that keeps rising, yet wages will stay or remain the same.
So when I was homeless, I was never hungry. It was never a problem. But when I had my own house, that was the period of time when I was hungry. And I think that's kind of like people assume if you've got enough money to pay the rent, if you've got enough money to pay the utilities, and you've got enough money to feed yourself.
A lot of the folks we do feed have jobs. They just can't afford to eat.
In Kern County, a high percentage of jobs are in agriculture and the service industry, where wages tend to be low. Many of those currently receiving food assistance are working full-time.
I am in a situation, I'm a single mother, 7 children. I have neighbors that have 2-parent homes, but they're still struggling as well.
Azim Husseini, a law student and founder of In the Field 661, feeds people living on the streets.
Bakersfield has one of the highest poverty rates, right? I think like 6 or 7% over the average of California. And part of it's just because it's low-paying jobs, right? Like a lot of these folks don't get paid enough money, which is an interesting paradox, right? Because I think we're the most productive spot as far as food goes. So it's an interesting paradox, right? Like we're able to grow all this food, but the same people working those foods can't afford to buy it.
If you are under the federal poverty guidelines, you're eligible for, what we used to call the food stamps, or now it's called the SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. And if you have children under the age of 5, you also get the WIC, the Women and Infant Children Assistance.
Families that rely on SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, they don't have enough assistance to make it through the month. So they get some support, but it's not enough.
It's funny. We are so much of the world's food is made right here. Yet in many communities, we live in food deserts and people don't have access to food.
Food deserts describe neighborhoods and communities that have limited access to affordable and nutritious foods. They are prevalent in urban and rural low-income areas.
Food deserts don't necessarily lack access to food. They lack access to healthy, nutritious, and affordable food.
Food that isn't great for you is less expensive, and so people load up on that, and they have health issues.
Many parts of rural Kern are designated food deserts, but so are areas of South and Southeast Bakersfield, where the burden falls heavily on low-income families and communities of color.
I think also a very important point about the food desert is that in the Southeast community, you might be able to go to the store and buy some stuff, but you won't see any healthy food.
The Southeast area do not have grocery stores. Yes, there are markets like Mr. Crumpton just mentioned where you go and pay $9 for a gallon of milk, but you're still, putting gasoline on that fire. You're not helping the situation by charging them $9 for a gallon of milk. Give them a grocery store. Help them out. Give them transportation so that they can get from one destination to the next destination, so that they can help to provide for themselves.
Transportation is a major factor in the creation of food deserts.
There's a lot of food. I mean, we are the United States of America. We are a rich country and we have food. I think the issue is that we just don't have enough hands or means of transporting or avenues to get that food to the places that it needs to go to.
One of the things that I've noticed, again, being from Los Angeles and now living here, is the lack of transportation options. Everything is so spread apart. Obviously, as someone privileged to have a car, it makes no difference to me. But what I've noticed is there is poor city planning, I think, in terms of accessibility.
We asked for a grocery store, we asked for a pharmacy, and we asked for a few other things for our community. And we got a homeless shelter.
Are you helping the desert or are you increasing the desert?
Many families living in food deserts rely heavily on the breakfast and lunch programs at school to supplement the nutritional needs of their school-age children.
The schools, have been putting out food, but if your children ride the bus to school, they still can't get to that site to get those sack lunches.
We have a lot of families, especially here in our county and Bakersfield, that have both parents working, and so if the school or location that is feeding food is not in walking distance or close to home, then that student's just not going to be able to make it to that site. And so that to me is the biggest hurdle or challenge to overcome. How do we lessen the geographical distance between the food and the children needing that food?
While a lack of grocery stores and limited access to transportation are external factors that contribute to food hardship, another and sometimes even greater factor is shame.
En unas cosas no nos quitamos la pena, o sea, ¿por qué si lo necesitas? ¿Por qué? Creo que más cuando ya eres padre de familia, ¿no? Pues, ¿sabes qué? no es para mí, es para mis hijos. Yo como quiera ya, pero ellos sí necesitan ahorita lo que hay, y si me lo están agarrando, pues sí, lo voy a agarrar porque es para ellas.
A 2018 Kaiser Permanente needs assessment at Bakersfield College found 35% of students to be food insecure. Yet only a fraction uses the campus food pantry. At Cal State Bakersfield, Dr. Watkins estimates that roughly 4,500 students experience food insecurity. But pre-pandemic, the food pantry served about 450 students per week. He attributes this to the stigma of asking for food.
I think the way we talk about it has a lot to do with the way it's perceived. For a lot of students, they talk about early on that the stigma was so overwhelming that they couldn't enter the pantry. Or when they did, they would time it so they were leaving when it was dark. Or I had one young man talk to about leaving the pantry and trying to hide everything in his backpack because he felt like a loser because he was visiting the pantry. I mean, he got really emotional. It was quite heartbreaking.
It's not only students who are ashamed to admit they are hungry.
It took me a long time to realize how poor is poor, because I didn't want to admit it to myself. I didn't want to admit to myself that I can't feed myself. And I think that's something that I think would be universal. That's embarrassing. It's embarrassing if you can't feed yourself.
And it is a basic right? People need to eat. I had a student tell me recently, I shouldn't feel embarrassed because I need to put food in my body.
Nobody wants to ask for help, but you have to, And you see people come up here and they're shy and stuff, oh, I'm sorry, I have to ask for help for food, but it's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you. It doesn't matter what background you have.
I would tell the people that are afraid to ask for help, look at your kids. Look at your kids. Because honestly, it's about them. It's not about you or how you feel or what anybody else thinks. It's about what your kids need, and that's it. And they need food to survive.
The reason why I think a lot of families don't have the access to food, shelter, services is a large-scaled issue within Kern County. And to be honest, it's not just Kern County. I think it's across our state, across the nation. We're divided by theory, we're divided by beliefs, we're divided on what the answer could be. And I think a lot of times that division doesn't bring the humanity of what is really needed.
A number of agencies and organizations in Kern County are dedicated to making food accessible to those who need it. The largest of these is the Community Action Partnership of Kern, CAPK, which distributes roughly 13 million pounds of food annually throughout Kern County. CAPK relies on the assistance of local churches, civic groups, and others to distribute the food, something that remains a problem in some areas of the county.
The food wasn't a problem. We have the food. The issue was getting it out. We really depend on our sites, which are usually, volunteers, local churches, nonprofits that assist us in giving the food out to the community.
The Golden Empire Gleaners accepts referrals from organizations working with individuals and families in need of food.
We do distribute every day, and then a family can come in up to once a week as needed to get food.
The mission at Kern County provides meals, clothing, shelter, and job skills training to people in transition.
We provide 3 meals a day, 365 days a year, so the kitchen is always going. We serve upwards of 200,000 meals per year.
Waste Hunger Not Food is an initiative of Kern County Public Health and local schools. When schools overestimate the amount of food they will need for a day, Waste Hunger Not Food will pick up the food, store it, and redistribute it in the community.
So far, the Waste Hunger Not Food program has rescued 1,000,000
135,000 pounds of food, which equals 945,000 meals. That is all food that would have otherwise been in the landfill. Instead, it's making an impact in our county.
CityServe is one of the organizations that distributes food rescued through Waste Hunger Not Food.
CityServe is a network of local churches who not only receive and distribute food from the Waste Hunger Not Food program, but they also have other donated goods such as furniture, clothing, diapers, home goods that they are able to give to those people in our community who are in need.
We believe, and why we birth CityServe, is that there's a church in every neighborhood. No matter where you go, there's a church in every neighborhood. So to empower that church to be the answer there is really the mission of what we're at.
More and more, these groups are coming to understand that relationship building is an essential part of helping people long term.
So for me, to see people as people, this is somebody's child, this is somebody's mother, this is somebody's grandchild, this is somebody that is a human. And a lot of times, we have lost humanity in how we deal with people. I go back to they're human beings just like we are. And we gotta get back to that. I think we gotta go back, and it's not them against us. This is, these are our fellow human beings that are our neighbors that live in our community.
Yeah, there's always gonna be challenges with people because they're people, right? And there's a lot of, with homeless folks or unsheltered people, or working with our local shelters and engaging with people who have been maybe marginalized, have a stigma or whatever that may be. It's looking past that, number one. Everybody has a story. And in the middle of that, when you really focus on that, you begin to see the potential in that person for the future.
Grassroots organizations like In the Field 661 and Food Not Bombs stress the importance of really seeing and connecting with the people they serve.
When we go out there, we go and we actually talk to people. We actually ask them, what do you need, right? How can we help you? I remember this one guy in his tent, he had like a Raider, like an Oakland Raider pillow. So I just sat there. I didn't sit there. I was standing, just talking to him for 30 minutes about the Oakland Raiders and about the football team. And it felt like that was way more important than the meal I was giving him, just to give him his agency, because he is a human. And I think houseless folks are constantly dehumanized.
Garland Miller is a resident of the Kern River Valley. He volunteers to help with Cap K food distributions through a local church. Seeing the need, he began taking leftover food boxes to seniors isolated in their homes during the pandemic.
It is about the food, but really it's not the food. The food is an avenue to meet people, to encourage people, just to reach out to people.
Garland, too, has learned to look past the behavior and into a common humanity.
And like I shared, everybody has a story.
Food hardship predated COVID-19. But COVID-19 gave organizations and caring individuals an opportunity to collaborate in Kern County as never before, not only to provide food, but to give people the knowledge of how to use it. The Grimm Family Education Foundation funds the Edible Schoolyard to teach children and adults both how to grow and how to cook healthy foods.
We are in a food desert, but we also have this separation between having food available in the grocery store and understanding what to do with that food. And what our part in that is making that connection, whether that be through the child or through the adult. It's our job to make sure that we're providing some sort of resources, which we've been able to do so with our mobile kitchen classroom program. And we've been able to bridge that gap between having the food available and understanding what to do with it.
The Apple Core Project is helping people in recovery through a community garden and cooking demonstrations.
I strongly feel that this garden project should, not only be in place in every recovery center, but I feel like it should also be in place in every school. I think that as I've said before, just the effects of this has been profound, because it's so much more than just, the learning how to grow your own food is key. That's amazing. The benefits of a plant-based diet and being familiar with vegetables and having it easily to incorporate in your life is a great effect on your health.
but also the learning how to make stuff grow. It's so good for your confidence.
Laura, recovering after COVID-19 shut down her business, began helping her neighbors.
Y tengo mi vecina que ella no maneja, no tiene carro, y le digo, ¿quieres ir? Puedes, ahorita vamos, te llevo. Ok, pues vamos y ya vamos. O sea, tengo esa es la ayuda que nos proporcionamos y nos estamos apoyando de esa manera.
Freddie, once a food recipient, is now a driver for the Cap K food truck.
You need to be here because you like the program, not because, because what I do, the community action is helping the community. It's what I do right here. It's no, you need to be represent the community. You need open your heart, open your arm for people need you. Te quieren que lo levantes, que darles un poquito de lo no es tuyo, ¿verdad? Pero es de ellos mismos, de la comunidad.
Leticia volunteers regularly at the Gleaners.
When I was a teenager, we were homeless. We were living in parks. At one point, my father was in the process of getting us from my mother, so we had no food on the table. The only time we were eating was at school. So after a while, she just told us to go to the Golden Empire Gleaners. Even though we were 16, we were able to volunteer for a food basket.
All of these agencies, organizations, individuals, and programs are part of a growing safety net to help those facing food hardship. But is it enough?
One of the things that we try to do is, first of all, meet the initial need. We try to give food to people that are in need, and that takes care of an immediate problem. But guess what? 2 days later, they're hungry again.
What more can we do?
It's going to take a community to change a community.
We are a collaboration, and it takes a village. One person can't do it alone. So one organization can't accomplish these goals. They can't make this kind of change by themselves. You have to collaborate. You have to work hard. It has to be a team.
Individuals can make donations or volunteer their time at food banks or in food distribution lines.
Kern County is one of the greatest places to live, in my opinion, is because when there's a need, people jump in.
Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And that's kind of what we're at here. You may not have the ability to donate $1,000, but you may have 5 cans of green beans in your pantry that you could get by without, and it would help somebody else.
Churches, schools, civic groups, or neighborhoods can become Cap K food distribution sites. Businesses and corporate sponsors can support the work of local organizations.
Yeah, we're doing the job. Help us do the job. Help provide the things we need. We need forklifts. We need a community commercial kitchen. We need a warehouse that's big enough to hold all these items for these families that's in need. We have the desire. We have the drive. We have the passion, and we have the most amazing volunteers in the world. So team up with us.
School districts can elect to serve meals year-round.
My call to action to my fellow head of food services within the county is to, serve during the summertime.
We can all work to reduce stigma.
People have to get over themselves because we're all exactly the same. And there, but for the grace of God, go you or I.
There are policy changes we can all support that will help change the trajectory of food hardship. Legislation has been introduced in California to provide school lunches free of charge to all students regardless of family income.
When you have 40% of kids that do actually need food, but 60% don't, there's a stigma behind getting into the free lunch line. And so getting rid of this free and reduced and just going to universal meals, everyone has the opportunity. You are no longer labeled the free and reduced line kid.
We can participate in local government and advocate for changes that will create opportunities for families and neighborhoods to become more self-sufficient. We can bring more farmers markets and produce stands selling fresh fruits and vegetables into low-income neighborhoods. We can work to increase the direct sale of farm produce from local farmers to local consumers. We can teach people to grow their own food and develop programs to help them give back.
I know people donate food, but some of them homeless people, they can get jobs being farmers and they're learning to give back. It's all type of programs that can be created just from farming alone. It just has to be, the people have to be there to have a blueprint. This is how we want to do it. This is how we're going to run. It's not about profit. It's not about profit. Right. It's about feeding. It's about a need. And we have enough resources to do it. We have enough seeds to donate. You know, we just need the hands to work it. And that's there. People will do that. People will give their time. It just has to be opportunity, and people have to be mobilized and energized to take these steps.
We can provide incentives to attract more supermarkets into low-income neighborhoods. We can streamline the certification of foods grown in school and community gardens so they can more easily enter the marketplace.
So long to figure out because I've been a part of that process for the last decade, like fighting the policies that could change food access for everyone. But this year, because they were forced with the pandemic, I think a lot of things have happened easily, like streamlined, and I look forward to when the world goes back that we keep those practices streamlined so that we continue to reach people that need to be reached.
We can support a living wage.
I think the financial piece is big. I think we don't pay people enough in general. I think in many of our local communities, we have people working really hard in the fields for next to nothing in terms of pay.
Right now, I'm in a low-income situation. I was doing good because I was on unemployment, but I just got a job, yay, that I really like. That's really rewarding, and I'm making just enough to where I don't get unemployment anymore, but I'm making significantly less than I would be making on unemployment.
By the year 2050, world population is expected to increase to 9.7 billion. The demand for food is expected to increase by 70%. A number of studies are predicting major food shortages. What we do locally, within our spheres of influence, may determine the future for all of us.
Only message I will want to give to them, those that haven't had to go through the adversities as we have had to struggle, and that do have the support or the means, is to have an open heart and have an open mind, and one day it could be you.